Hello. So, what do I recommend for the up-and-coming filmmaker, photographer out there? Now, there are many things to discuss about here, and I won't get into the whole world of it because there is a whole world of information out there. And plus, there's a lot of cool sources on the internet for anybody who wants to go over to any camera systems out there. Now, I'm kind of approaching or aiming this towards people who are just getting started out and have a little bit of money to splash towards a small production kit. And say, for example, if you're a solo dude wanting to go all in and invest 100% of your life into filmmaking and creativity, then I would recommend the following things. So get yourself a decent camera body that has a decent internal recording capabilities. RAW isn't totally necessary, but it is a nice choice. You have great manufacturers like Blackmagic and Red who offer fantastic choices there. Always depends on your budget, of course, but you have to play around with that idea. You don't always have to go the latest and greatest. You can find some pretty good secondhand stuff on the market, and I always promote that whole secondhand purchasing there rather than fueling this consumption lifestyle. So you can find some great stuff on the market there for a camera body, but don't get too focused about the camera bodies. They do help massively for a certain image quality. Yes, I do agree, but that shouldn't be your main factor or main choice in getting started with your film kit. Your camera body can come later. I would really focus on lenses. Now, there's so many lenses out there on the market, and again, secondhand, I always try to say, okay, don't buy new, find a good kit or single lenses out there online. You can go from anywhere, like these classic little Russian vintage lenses that go for, I got this one for 200 krona, which is like $30. You can't go wrong with these. They're great little pieces of glass. They're a paintbrush at the end of the day. You can get creative with it. You can stop it down, make it look half decent. Depending on what you do, it's always that decision when you're doing a job. If you're going a little bit more corporate, then you could probably pick up some, maybe some Carl Zeiss glass or even the Falklander glasses. They are fantastic lenses and they are super sharp. I'm filming it on the Carl Zeiss 21mm. It's a legendary lens. But that's a little bit more on the expensive side. So maybe if you don't have that, you can also pick up some decent Canon non-L glass, or some of the kind of vintage glasses that may be produced in the later years, but you need an adapter to mount it. That's always a plus for someone out there getting started, because you can really get good quality images from very inexpensive glass out there. And it's always about hunting stuff online. Your local market or even your local camera shops might have some bits and pieces there. I generally find my stuff from private sellers. They are enthusiasts or professionals who are just kind of like moving all their stuff in and out. You can pick up pretty cheap adapters here. I have an M42 to EF mount. My big advice would be to get one that you can kind of rotate the inner ring if you want to have that marker right up the top on your viewing angle, so you can actually see what your distance is and everything. And sometimes I think it's just good to have things straight anyway. But that being said, there's super inexpensive options. These adapters cost like, I don't know, $3 online, and you can get them sent to your doorstep within a couple of weeks. So if you want to go the classic lenses route, do that. I totally recommend it, and you can get fantastic results with certain types of lenses. You can have a look at the old Pentacon or Contact Zeiss lenses, or even some of the old Russian lenses from Zenit and stuff like this. Totally worth it. And if you're getting started out, it's great to experiment and get started to get used to this manual focusing business, because that's how it is. If you need autofocus, that's a different ballpark. I had autofocus with my cinema camera stuff, and I just default now to follow focus or manual focus stuff, and that's just how I live with it. It's no biggie with not having autofocus on my systems, and I think it's actually kind of better that way to not complicate things. I like to have things a little bit more manual when I'm working. Moving on, a big important one is light. You need to feed your camera light, and there is a company called Nanlite that do awesome little lights, so inexpensive, and if you've got a few $100 to invest in some lighting, I definitely recommend looking into these. These guys are awesome. I use them all the time with all my jobs. I've got 1, 2, 3 of these lights. They are pretty powerful, and you know, they're pretty small. You throw them in your bag and you can kind of use it, say for example, if you're in a pinch, to use it as this one as a key light if you really need to. And then I really love using these as creative options, just to put them in the background and, you know, just get a different splash of light. It just brings the picture a bit more to life. Moving on over to more of the lighting. Lighting is definitely crucial, and all of these things interplay together when you're making videos. Definitely look into a decent little let's say single source light, or a lot of these cob chips that are coming out. Basically you've got this big one source LED rather than little dotty ones. I'm using the Nanlite Forza 60, and this is on like 40%, and I've got a little softbox and a grid on it, and you know, it delivers, wow, it's got a lot of power for such a little unit, and I totally recommend it, especially if you're like kind of run and gun and really need to get into a tight space. This is a really small unit. It's like the size of the size of this little Pelican case kind of thing, a little bit bigger, but you can kind of get the idea and just throw it in a small bag. In fact, I'll show you the bag. Here's the bag. Small little carry case, awesome. You can throw your little Pavo tubes in there as well, and off you go. What I love about the Forza 60 is that you can run it off some Sony MPF batteries, and if you get them bigger capacity ones, you can go over an hour use on max power, and that's awesome. But it also plugs into mains, and I don't know, I can't recommend it anymore. And I really thank Nanlite, not that I'm being sponsored by this, for bringing out such great products. I have a couple of their products, Pavo tubes, the big Forza 500 and the 60. Awesome, big quality of light, lots of light, and you know, you can dim them down so you can have a really good subtle light, or you can have them full max power and really compete with the sun there. So that's awesome for you know, owner operators like myself, who don't need to lug around like big lights all the time. I've got a 2 set of Kino Flow lights, and they're in a big flight case that's like, I don't know, 30 kilos or something like that. Yeah, it's got the stands and everything in it, and I can go travel international, but like, yeah, it's just not as easy and accessible as these little lights here. So anyone starting out, try the Forza 60. It's got enough power to help anybody out doing anything. And if you got a couple of extra bucks to spare, get yourself a couple of like blankets, or like, you know, yeah, these kind of very thick plastic, or not plastic but fibery blankets, and a couple of these clips, you know, these big clamp clips, and you can black out windows and really control the light there. So if you're working with lighting, get yourself a couple of blankets, get yourself a small LED light like this, because it's got heaps of power. And you could probably pick up a 2 kit with stands and all this kind of stuff in a case for like $1,000, and that's super killer deal. And then you can use one light to splash light in the back of the room, and then you have your key light, for example, or you can use it in any array. But lighting is super important, and lighting is something that I definitely always encourage people now to kind of focus on, more than the camera gear and all this kind of stuff, because I could shoot this with an iPhone, and if I've got good lighting, my iPhone images is going to look just as great as what's coming from this Red camera. Moving along quickly, I've got a boom here with a microphone. Microphones always, for me, I'm always a little bit kind of nervous when recording audio, because especially on jobs, and if I'm doing audio lighting, video, maybe a little bit of direction and all this other kind of stuff, it can be a little bit nerve-wracking going, oh, I hope my audio is okay. I've come to terms, and I've trained a lot myself, just playing around with the audio, limitations and all this kind of stuff. But what you don't want to do is clip. Clipping sucks, and you can't bring that back. And I'm always trying to make sure that my audio option is well looked after. So I have a couple of techniques that can get quite expensive, because audio is kind of like a different world. You can do a simple microphone from the camera and then straight at somebody. That can work, but it's not always the professional thing. I would probably recommend either going, a lavalier system and clip a mic up here, and it gets a really great result, and it's quite cheap, especially if you just have the cable option, if you're doing simple talking head stuff. But if you want to go wireless stuff, it gets a little bit more expensive, but there are inexpensive kits out there. I'm about to do a reinvestment for my wireless kit, because I think Rode just came out with two senders and one receiver, which is goes into one unit, and it's this big, and it's I don't know, $300. So I've kind of been reconsidering, these kind of run and gun situations. It's not always practical to have a microphone up on a boom arm, and you got to set that up and stuff like that, where it's just easy to kind of plug into the camera, clip onto the person, and just start recording. But if you do have time to do setup, it is always nicer to have a good quality microphone. So for example, here I've got a Rode NTG3, which is a broadcast quality microphone. It's their flagship, I believe. I also have the NTG2, which is, I put a battery in it, and it doesn't require phantom power. So that's actually really good if you want that on the camera. And if you're doing scratch audio or doing main audio direct into your camera, you can run an XLR cable, if your camera has XLR option, and plug that straight into your camera or mixer. With this boom, I actually have my audio recorded separately, so I'm actually recording into a Zoom H4, which is going through a mixer here, and you can actually see that my audio is coming in through here. So I send 48 volt phantom power to this microphone, and I remix it later, just to see a bit of the process. But that gets expensive after a while, and that's audio, so it's what, $500 for the microphone, $400 for the boom kit, and then it's another $300 for the mixer, and then $150 for the recorder. At the end of the day, you got $1,000 just there for the audio stuff. But there are other cheaper options out there, and there are other good options out there that one can get started with and create professional sounding audio. But again, that's just okay, what do you consider doing out there? Are you doing people talking a lot, or do you have sit-down interviews a lot, or are you doing kind of event stuff where you just have a microphone and the camera and just kind of get vox pop stuff? Or there are a lot of things to consider there, and it gets deeper and deeper. But for the starting filmmaker, I would probably say get yourself a Rode Video Mic Pro. I think it's that little shotgun mic that sits on the camera. I had one, was really great microphone, awesome. After a while, when I got into the more professional cameras, I went and got the more professional mics and stuff like that, because I was stepping up my game a little bit, and that's just what happened, that progression. But if I was to move back and get more of an ENG style camera, which is electronic news gathering for those who don't know, they generally have the little microphones there that you can put on. That's the little holder. If not, you can have a shotgun microphone up on the cold shoe, or plug your wireless microphones in via the XLR or the stereo jacks. So that's many options that one can consider there, and there are so many good options out there. There are a lot of terrible options out there as well, so kind of just take things as a grain of salt that's said on manufacturers' websites, and kind of trawl the net for a bit of YouTube advice. That's always a good one. But definitely focus a lot on audio quality. Try and train yourself up to understand how audio works and how you record it and how it sounds, in a situation, and just play around with it a bit. Get your girlfriend or some friends together and just do some tests and try and strike it as a bit of fun, give them some juice, and everybody have a good time. And then you say, okay, look guys, you know, thanks for doing this. I'll give you some pictures and do some screenshots if you're shooting 4K or 5K or 6K or whatever K. But my definite big recommendations are lighting and audio. Focus on those very much as first, and then once you've got that kind of under control, then have a look at some lens options. Get some very nice glass. You know, if you start making some bank after a while with your work, upgrade your glass. You know, kind of keep your vintage glasses because they always have a use afterwards. But always look at the upgrade path. That lenses are an investment, audio is an investment, and lights are an investment. Camera bodies are also an investment, but camera bodies are always like moving and improving. I think a lot of the things that I look in my kit today that have moved a lot and things that haven't moved a lot. One things that haven't moved at all are my lenses and my microphones. My lighting is moving because a lot of the lighting is kind of getting compact, so I sold some of my other lights to get these more powerful lights here because they were also very inexpensive. So there are a few things to consider there, and what I recommend doing is treating lenses as an integral investment, lighting as a you know, an improvement investment as you go along and you start doing bigger productions, audio as a total investment, because you know it's AV, audio visual, and if you got crappy audio, nobody wants to really look at the picture anymore. You know, when I started out, I created a couple of videos using the onboard audio of a GoPro, and somebody said, who is this jerk? And I get it, you know, because you can't listen to that stuff. But if I had decent audio coming in, people can kind of forgive the not so good quality video. So I definitely would say that. And if you have a pretty mediocre camera, but you feed it enough light and give it good audio, it's going to look and sound great. So at the end of the day, take my 2 cents worth, ingest it, think about it, and see what you can do to mix it, because there is a lot of crap out there and you can spend a lot of money on useless things that you don't need. And people call it gas gear acquisition syndrome, which is a funny term. I would definitely consider those options that I just mentioned, and afterwards, you know, you obviously need a computer that can handle certain edits. If you're working with high definition video, which is still relevant today, and you're working with a high definition camera, just stick with a good I don't know, MacBook Pro, or you know, a decent tower with a decent video card. But if you're going to go into 4K stuff, then you need to start investing for the infrastructure for that, just saying. But at the end of the day, depending on what you're doing, whether it's just talking heads or if you're doing narrative stuff, or if you're going into wanting to make films and short films and stuff like that, there are many things to consider there. So if you're the inspiring filmmaker who's watching this and listening to me and ingesting whatever this, I hope this helps you in your decision-making process, because that's coming from experience from my side and from my years of putting this all together. But eventually, if you desire certain things, just you got to work for it. That's it at the end of the day, unless you're rich and you can get whatever you want anyway. But that doesn't necessarily make your picture good. So I'll leave you with that. And yeah, thanks for watching.